Hello and welcome to the Examined Life. My name is Scott Sullivan, and today we're going to talk about how to live well, the case for a philosophy of life. Let me start by asking you a question. What do you want out of life? I'm not asking what you want in life. You want to do this particular thing and that particular thing, have a good job, a nice house. That's not what I'm asking. Those are things you may want in life. What I'm asking something bigger, kind of a macro view. What do you want out of life? What do you want your life to be about? The major purpose, the major meaning of your life. You only get one. So in other words, what do you want out of life, like the whole? In other words, I want to know, what is your grand goal in living? What's the one thing you would be unwilling to sacrifice everything else to attain? Most people have never seriously asked that question. Our culture doesn't really encourage it. We have a lot of distractions that make us not think about these deep questions. But here's the problem. If you never answer that question, what do you want out of your life? If you never identify your grand goal for a living, you risk what the ancient philosophers called misliving. You will mislive your life. You will get to the end of your life and discover that, man, this life is all gone and I wasted it on a bunch of frivolous, stupid things. You wasted your one chance at living. So it's an important thing. And that's what this channel is for. That's what philosophy was originally designed to prevent. The philosophy in the old school sense, what philosophy is, at least in this sort of ancient ethical sense. Now, most people hear the word philosophy today and they think it's some dry academic exercise you do in university. You talk about these abstract questions. There aren't really any answers to these questions. You debate about things that you can't ever get to the truth of things. It's all heady. And it has no real meaning on how you actually live. And to be fair, that's the way philosophy is for a lot of people. A lot of academics today, they're in historical things. There's all these different divisions of philosophy, logic, metaphysics. It's a lot of heady things that it may seem like they don't have a whole lot of practical value for you. You see that a lot in today's academia. And what you almost certainly don't see in today's academia is what the ancient Greeks called a philosopher of life. A person who's trying to be a wise man and trying to figure out how to live well, how to live a good life. Someone whose primary concern is helping you answer that question, how should I live? But it hasn't always been this way. It is this way nowadays, but in the ancient model, it was not that way. For the ancient Greek and Roman philosophers, they pursued this question. This was the very purpose of philosophy. How do I live my life? What's the best way to live? That's the whole purpose of philosophy, according to their view. What is my reason for existing? And their whole goal was to develop a philosophy of life, to answer that question, to use our mind, to use our reason, and answer, what is the purpose of my life? How should I live it? What should I pursue? What should I avoid? How can I have a life that's thriving? How do I deal with suffering and pain and setbacks and depression? These sorts of negative emotions. How can I maximize my positive emotions and minimize my negative emotions? That's what they pursued in the ancient world, in the ancient Greco-Roman philosophical world. And these philosophers didn't keep these discoveries to themselves. They started schools of thought, different views, different answers to these questions. The Stoic school, the Aristotelian school, the Platonic school, whatever. They would compete, borrow ideas from each other. And it was kind of a pursuit, all these different pursuits towards answering this most important question: how should a human being live? And honestly, they were very unapologetic about the therapeutic purpose of this work. Philosophy was like a medicine for the mind, a medicine for the soul. Helps you feel better about suffering, helps you live better. Epicurus said it directly. He said, "Vain is the word of a philosopher which does not heal any suffering of man." For just as there is no profit in medicine if it does not expel the diseases of the body, so there is no profit in philosophy either if it does not expel the suffering of the mind. So you see this idea of philosophy, reason, wisdom as a way to expel the sufferings of the mind. Therapeutic. Reason as therapy. Rational therapy. Seneca said it too. He said, he who studies with a philosopher should take away from him some good thing every day. He should daily return home a wiser man, a sounder man, or at least on the way to becoming one. It should apply to your life. It should make your life better. Philosophy should make your life better. Very practical view. Not heady, head in the stars. Not that at all. So this is the ancient conception of philosophy as this medicine for the soul, this medicina anime. Rational therapy, as I said. A systematic practice for living better, thinking more clearly, handling suffering more wisely, and becoming the kind of person worth being. Becoming a better human being. That's what it was about. And this is the tradition that this channel, this program belongs to. That's what we're here for. So we're here to do philosophy, absolutely, but not here in the heady, speculative, unpractical sense that a lot of people think it is. That's what this channel, The Examined Life, is for. And I want to encourage you that you need something like this. You desperately need a philosophy of life. A philosophy of life has two main components. Number one, you need a grand goal in living. What is your life all about? You got a lot of different things you want to do. How do they stack up? Do they contradict each other? You want a ton of peace of mind and you want a ton of money? Maybe that doesn't go well together. You see, what is your grand goal in life? Ultimately speaking, what do you really want at the end of the day, at the end of your life? What's the major purpose towards which everything else, you're organizing and living? Because without this, you're like a traveler with no destination, just kind of wandering around. You move constantly, you arrive nowhere. That's the first thing you need to have a good philosophy of life. You need a grand goal in living. The second thing you need is a plan to get there. You got to have the goal, then you got to have the way. What is your grand purpose in living? And then how are you going to get there? Knowing what you want isn't enough. You got to know how to get there too. You got to have the map, the path. You need to actually know what you must do to reach that. How do you go about your daily activities in order to reach that goal, to maximize your chances, at least, of actually arriving at what you really want? This is important. Most people have neither of these. They don't have a major goal in living, and therefore they don't have a plan for it either. Really, what I think most people to do in our modern society is kind of adopt the default philosophy, kind of floating around, unspoken, unthought, but sort of a default thing in the culture around us that's unexamined. Well, let's just live for pleasure, money, entertainment, some sort of modern form of hedonism. How much entertainment can I consume? How much pleasure can I consume? Some sort of weird mix of affluence, entertainment, social status, and pleasure. I think that's the sort of modern default philosophy of life. It's not well thought out. People didn't reason themselves to get here. They just kind of fall into it. They suck it in, from our culture, so to speak. Just what everyone else is doing. So kind of unconsciously join the bandwagon. But I think that this default philosophy is almost certainly defective. And there are a lot of wise people who would agree with me on that. It's not an examined life. You have to have an examined life. You want whatever your major goal in life is, you want to think through it well and intelligently. Because the cost of never examining your life is potentially wasting your life. As I said, it's the danger of misliving. This is what the ancient philosophers said. Despite all of your activity, despite all of these pleasant diversions you're taking, all this entertainment, you will end up on your deathbed looking back and realize you wasted your one chance, your one freaking chance at living. You wasted it on a bunch of frivolous crap. Instead of spending your life pursuing something meaningful, valuable, You squandered it. You squandered your life on a bunch of trivial stuff. This is a big deal. This is not a small danger, right? This is perhaps the greatest danger human beings face today, misliving. And honestly, this danger is almost entirely invisible. Most people don't even know they're falling into it because our culture is so organized around preventing us from deep thought, from deep reflection. You know, Socrates once said, the unexamined life is not worth living. Let me say that again. Socrates, one of the founding fathers of all philosophy, right? The unexamined life is not worth living. There are a ton of people today who are living unexamined lives, right? A life without philosophical self-examination, what should I be living for? Sometimes you hear in like this sort of a personal growth culture, set goals. You gotta have goals. Hustle for what? What am I working for, ultimately speaking? What should my, not just merely, you should have goals. You can have any kind of goals, good or bad. What should my goals be? See, without serious reflection on what you're doing and why, you're in danger of wasting your life. And that's a hard thing to say, but it's true. And the ancient philosophers said these hard, true things because they were physicians. They were healers. They were trying to heal you, not make you feel more emotionally comfortable in your error. So that's what this channel is about, the examined life. Philosophy practically applied to your life, helping all of us, and I'm a student of it too, making our lives better in different ways. Let me just talk to you for a second about my approach. Now, I'm actually a martial artist. I've been doing martial arts my whole life. What martial art? All the good stuff I can learn is the answer. I borrow from everybody. Judo, boxing, jiu-jitsu, Filipino martial arts, wrestling. I borrow the best from the best, and I come up with my own best of the best eclectic blend. I don't just do it randomly. I systematically pick out these good things and I fit them together, and that's what I teach at my school. That's what I train. And I approach philosophy the same way. I am not just a Stoic. I am not just an Aristotelian, not just a Platonist. I'm an eclectic philosopher. I want to go out and find truth, whoever says it, whatever school says it, and it's coherent with the rest of my beliefs, bring it on. Aristotle on virtue and human flourishing, that's good. The Stoics on how you handle what you can't control, indispensable. Cicero on duty and friendship, love that. Seneca on time, transformative. Epictetus on freedom, maybe practically the most powerful philosophical idea ever developed. Schopenhauer on suffering, Montaigne on self-knowledge. I love all this stuff. I borrow pieces and I put it into my philosophical thought, just like I borrow from different martial arts schools. I borrow from different philosophical schools. I take all of them. I find out what I think actually works and what makes me better at the art of living. That's my approach. That's what we're going to be talking about here. All the different ideas that might help you as well. Because I think if you want to follow this channel, we're going to go on this journey together. Let me talk for a second about what we're doing in compatibility with religious belief. This is an important point for people who have religious beliefs, as do I. I think this philosophical approach is entirely compatible with religious belief. Take, for example, Christianity. The great Christian thinkers, Augustine, Aquinas, Boethius, they all drew heavily from these philosophical traditions that I'm talking about. St. Thomas Aquinas borrowed from Aristotle on ethics. Augustine was deeply formed by Platonism. Boethius wrote the Consolation of Philosophy, one of the greatest philosophical texts ever produced, when he was awaiting execution, but he drew upon both the Stoics and the Platonists when he did it. So a lot of great Christian thinkers have already done this. So if you're a Christian believer too, what we're talking about is compatible. You're just like Boethius. You're just like Aquinas. You're just like Augustine. borrowing from this wisdom from the past. These guys, they didn't have all the revealed knowledge that you might get out of Scripture, but they were students of the natural law. God's revelation in nature, God's revelation in human nature and the universe too. So there's a lot of compatibility here. So if you're a religious believer, great, you're welcome here. But this channel does not require religious belief. We're just going to go on reason alone. We're not going to presuppose any religious belief. We're not going to presuppose any faith. These philosophical arguments stand on their own rational merits. So people of faith, people without faith will find equal value here because the questions being asked, such as how should I live? How do I handle suffering? What is friendship? What is courage? These are human questions, not just sectarian religious ones. So, this channel, who's this channel for? This program, this channel is for ordinary people who worry they might be misliving. They worry that they might be living without a major defined purpose in their life. Maybe it's people who've come to realization like, crap, man, I need kind of a system. I need an idea. I need a philosophy of life, an intelligent one, not one I just made up. The best way to have an intelligent one is to look at what all the intelligent people who came before you said about it and pick and choose and get that eclectic thing going on, like I said. So we're trying to keep people from people who we want to help people who are floundering in life, not sure where to go, not sure what their purpose is, not sure what they should focus on every day. It also includes people who already have some kind of philosophy of life, maybe some kind of religious belief, but you want to kind of add to it and improve it somehow. It also applies to people who have maybe read some of the modern self-help books but found them a little shallow. You belong here. Maybe you've tried the productivity systems out there, all the modern hustle movements and goal optimization and how to optimize your morning. It didn't really resonate with you on some of those deeper questions. If that's true, you belong here. If you somehow sense that somewhere in the ancient world there's something better out there, maybe something more serious, maybe something you can learn to improve your life, something more permanent, deeper, more genuinely useful, you belong here too. That's who this channel is for, and I've given you an idea of what we're trying to do here. Let's talk about the format for just a minute. So what I like to do in this channel is I read these great books of the Western philosophical tradition. I just try to devour them. Seriously, I read actively. I read with a pen. I read with a highlighter. I mark up my books, take notes, cross-reference. And then I translate all that into plain language for the average guy. That I could take all this deep philosophy and translate it for people who can just put it to practical use in their lives. Not dumbed down, translated with full fidelity. There's a difference. You know, these great ideas aren't hard because the words are hard. They're difficult because the ideas can be genuinely demanding. And what my job here is I'm going to try to meet you in the middle. I'm going to do all the demanding work of going through the primary text. I'm going to give it to you in an easily digestible manner, put it in blue-collar language for you. Not dumb it down, but make it understandable. I have a series of infographics to help you kind of encapsulate and graphically display and therefore memorize all these important ideas and help you bring back what's most valuable in a form that you can take away and actually apply in your life too. So every episode is going to give you something to think about and something to do. Philosophy is not just information, not just consuming knowledge. You have to put it into practice. It's like training. And like all training, it only works if you practice it. So we're going to have practical application, practical training, so you can put it in your lives and make it effective, make it real. So my goal is in every episode to give you something to think about, something to do. The examined life, deep engagement with some ancient, wise, primary text, Cicero, Aristotle, Seneca, Epictetus, whoever. How to live a fitting life, how to be a real friend, how to handle death, how to stop wasting time. Big things, important things. So that's it. The goal of this channel is simple: to help you develop a coherent, examined, rational philosophy of life drawn from the wisest minds in the Western tradition. Pretty big stuff. So that you can handle suffering better, live more wisely, relate to others more easily, and most importantly, darn it, reach the end of your life without regret. The ancient philosophers called this the art of living. They believed it was the most important art a human being could master. More important than any professional skill, any financial achievement, any social status. And I think they're right. So that's it. The unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates said this at his trial when he was facing execution. He was unwilling to stop philosophizing, even to save his life. He meant it as the most serious thing a human being could say. So in other words, the examined life, the life lived with genuine intellectual, philosophical reflection, with serious attention to the question of how you should live, that's the only life worth living. That's what we're doing here. The name of this channel is The Examined Life. Philosophy for real people. Great books, timeless wisdom, better living. In Latin, vita examinata. Welcome.